We were struck unexpectedly, the impact was relentless. The alarm sounded sharply. Every soldier, every vessel, must brace quickly. Turkey's red lines were crossed. Russia's reckless gamble in the Black Sea shattered the fragile peace. Recent weeks brought chaos: Russian drones intruding into Turkish airspace, seized at the borders. Turkish ships faced missile strikes near Ukrainian ports, threats that echoed through the corridors of power. This aggression turned Turkey from a neutral mediator into a powerful gatekeeper. Now, Ankara stands ready to sever Moscow's economic lifeline. The Kremlin fails to grasp Turkey's true intention, one that could wield the deadliest weapon on the table, the Montreux option. Warning signs? They're no longer warnings, they're a threat of action. Closing the straits could cripple Russia's economy altogether. Vladimir Putin's political storm darkens, trapped between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. People wonder, how could Russian ships become prisoners in this narrow corridor? Erdogan's response came directly from the highest office. While many suspected Ankara would close the straits, Turkey's real move was a quiet surprise, beyond expectations. The new front? Romania. Turkey committed to arming the western coast of the Black Sea, NATO's eastern flank, using its own defense manufacturing might. A variant of the advanced Milgem-class corvette, produced at the Asfalt shipyards, was handed over to Romania's navy, named Akhisar. It's no simple patrol boat. This vessel is a formidable naval predator equipped with cutting-edge underwater sonar scanners, guided missile systems capable of surface-to-surface strikes, and electronic warfare gear. This isn't just an export victory. In military terms, it's a strategic advance. The first Turkish-built open-sea warship in the NATO fleet. An invisible wall rising in the Black Sea, making Moscow's moves riskier and more dangerous. These ships can detect Russian submarines lurking beneath the surface, turning the tide of control in the region. Turkey is shifting from passive defense to active containment. Shooting down drones and halting missile strikes is just the beginning. Now, Ankara speaks Russian's language, naval power and missile defense. Every Turkish vessel and radar acts as an unbreakable barrier. But beneath the surface of diplomacy, a new alliance quietly emerges, one that threatens Russia's naval dominance in the Black Sea. Enter MCM Black Sea. Russia tried to claim the sea as a hazard zone, laying mines to block Ukrainian grain shipments. Turkey responded swiftly. Through clever diplomacy with Romania and Bulgaria, Ankara established a permanent NATO-aligned naval force in the Black Sea. This force meets all NATO standards, obeys the Montreux Convention, and is composed solely of actual regional allies. The genius? For years, Moscow threatened to strike US and UK ships entering the Black Sea, claiming it as Russia's inland sea. But now, no more foreign flags flying near Russian coastlines. Instead, NATO ships fly Turkish, Romanian, and Bulgarian flags, fully integrated into NATO command, using NATO gear, and operating under NATO doctrine. Moscow's threats lose power. Every Russian submarine movement is tracked in real time by Turkish sonar, NATO's data networks, and shared reporting in Brussels. The Black Sea is no longer Moscow's backyard, it's NATO's most fortified frontier. This shift forces Russia's fleet into chaos. Submarines can't operate freely, their bases at Sevastopol are cramped, their movements restricted. Moscow's naval ambitions are boxed in. And the squeeze doesn't stop there. Turkey extends its strategic reach into other critical areas. Putin's Black Sea gamble has placed Moscow's military outposts, like in Syria and the eastern Mediterranean, under threat. Russia relies heavily on the Turkey-controlled straits to supply its bases in Syria. The Tartus naval base and Mimim airfield are vulnerable. Their logistics, fuel, weapons, personnel, depend on lawful passage through the Bosporus. Turkey can slow or block this route at any moment. Blocking this artery could quickly exhaust Russia's military footprint in the region. Bases turn into stranded islands, cut off from reinforcement and resupply. Every delay, every blockade, tightens the noose. Moscow's ambitions in Syria and the eastern Mediterranean are slowly shrinking. Russia's proxy operations in Libya and Africa are also linked to this cheap but vital arterial route. Russian-controlled airbases provide access deep into the continent, the transit points like Matan el-Sara, Al-Qadim, Al-Jufra, and others, forming a resilient supply network. If Turkey turns off this supply chain, Russia's African ambitions could vanish overnight. Its influence, built over years of effort, would evaporate like desert mirage. Meanwhile, the Mediterranean, long a safe haven, begins to change. Turkey's actions ripple across energy and diplomatic corridors. The Kremlin's assumptions crumble. Historically, Russia saw Turkey as a bridge to the West, a gateway for energy exports, a safe harbor in turbulent times. But recent moves have shattered that belief. Turkey inked a major energy deal, signing a 20-year pact with a major American energy company to buy liquefied natural gas. This isn't just a business agreement. It's a strategic salvo, signaling independence from Russian blackmail. This long-term contract implies Turkey's energy future no longer depends on Moscow. Instead, it's moving toward diversified sources, shipping LNG from across oceans, bypassing Russian pipelines altogether. The impact? Russia's claim as an energy superpower weakens sharply. Moscow's influence over Turkey relies on gas pipelines, these are now open to alternative supply lines. And the message spreads. Energy now intertwines with geopolitics. Defense strategies? They follow suit. The entire balance of NATO shifts. The United States, under political pressure, slowly rewires its approach to Turkey, redefining alliances and strategies. Every move in energy, naval power, and diplomacy forms a complex web of control. In this new era, the question remains, will Moscow's gamble in the Black Sea turn into an irreversible defeat? The answer is unfolding, piece by piece, in the shadows of sea and sky. We've been pummeled hard, hit right where it hurts. Alarm bells ring out, summoning every man to arms. Russia's reckless gambles in the Black Sea have shattered Turkey's patience, turning a mediator into a relentless gatekeeper ready to sever Moscow's economic veins. In the previous segment, we saw how Turkey exported advanced naval hunters to Romania, ships bristling with sonar, missiles, and electronic defenses. What seemed like a simple sale actually thrusts NATO's front lines deeper into hostile waters. Imagine this, what if Russia's vaunted Black Sea playground suddenly transformed into a prison, its warships trapped and humiliated? That first Turkish-built patrol vessel handed to Romania laid the cornerstone of NATO's shield against the Russian fleet. Its sensors, humming like silent predators, pierce the depths to track submarine movements. Radar systems whisper secrets of enemy maneuvers. Beyond neutralizing drones off their own coasts, Turkey erects an invisible seawall, constricting Russia's operational domain from Romania's beaches. The stench of defeat permeates the air, static from electronic ghosts clashing in unseen battles. This dismantles Moscow's illusion of the Black Sea as a private lake, morphing it into a fortified NATO barrier, armed with Turkish ingenuity. The shift feels visceral, like the earth trembling under the weight of shifted power. Turkey's evolution from passive bystander to aggressive defender simmers with tension. Each downed drone, airspace invaders shot down with precision, echoes the crack of gunfire and the acrid smoke of countermeasures. Engagement rules tightened like a noose. Ship assaults acted as the final incendiary spark. No more mere diplomatic murmurings, Ankara roars in the language of naval might and missile flights, ships slicing through waves like sharks sensing blood. Every Turkish vessel now patrolling, radar sweeping skies, it looms as an unbreakable barrier, not a nuisance. Yet, this brinkmanship teeters on more fracture points. Beneath diplomatic waves, a clandestine pact bubbles up, eroding Russia's dominance beneath the surface. Can you feel the chill of impending isolation, where Moscow's empire frays at the edges? Deep in those murky depths, far from public glare, MCM Black Sea emerges as a stealth alliance, stealthily dismantling Russia's naval edge. Russia scattered mines like jagged thorns to block Ukrainian grain routes, declaring the sea a hazard zone. But Turkey countered brilliantly, a NATO masterstroke. Through accords with Romania and Bulgaria, a steadfast naval force patrols, NATO-compliant, Montreux-validated, crewed by regional allies. Can Russia withstand this phantom fleet, flags fluttering in Turkish, Romanian, Bulgarian hues, yet tethered to NATO networks and munitions? The scent of salt spray mixes with the metallic tang of command code crackling through communicators. Genoa here, Moscow's threats targeted American or British ships they'd never let enter. But now, no stars and stripes taunt them. Instead, local powers integrated into the alliance strike head-on. What happens when the bully faces neighbors boosted by unbeatable tech? The strategic brilliance? This frontal entry mocks Putin's cries against NATO creep, letting the alliance march through the region's own doors. Real-time surveillance, Turkish sonar pings melding with tripartite data streams, feeds Brussels instantly. Russian subs, once prowling freely, now cower in ports. The Black Sea evolves from Russia's backyard sandbox into NATO's vanguard stronghold. Feel the grit of displaced sand as fleets bolt from Sevastopol to Novorossiysk, even Abkhazia's shores, chased by digital hounds. But Turkey's squeeze intensifies, not just here, but stretching outward. Black Sea gambles ripple, hostage Moscow's Mediterranean footholds. In Syria, Russia's token force clings by thin threads, its Syria Express lifeline Aesir fluid through Istanbul and Dardanelles, vital for fuel, munitions, crew swaps to Tartus and Mimimim bases. Deprive this artery, cite Black Sea disputes or stretch Montreux leverage, and the presence wolfs pure exhaustion in weeks. A base cut off from support bleakens into a stranded hostage, the harsh scrape of boots on foreign soil a constant reminder. This Ankara's power clamps like pincers, north and south. Libya's airfields pulse with intrigue. Al-Warsh_Ifa near Chad, Sudan borders as chaos hubs, dispatching Wagner's successor, Africa Corps, arms and agitators. Dispersed hubs, Alaka Ditman the east, Al-Jufra centrally, Brak al-Shadi by Sava, Al-Qadabiyah south of Sirte. Linked to Syria's transit, they weave instability's web. Close Turkey's valve, and Russia's African mirage fades. The Mediterranean, once Russia's leisurely domain, now bristles. Shocks rattle energy veils and diplomacy spun for years. Kremlin's Turkish energy export haven crumbles since Ankara's 20-year LNG deal with Mercuria, 4 billion cubic meters annually from U.S. sources. A calculated breakup from Gazprom dependency, obliterating Putin's leverage. Timing? Catastrophic. Post-Europe loss, Turkey risks slipping away. Long-term blanket ensures futures in Atlantic tankers, not Russian pipes. Energy behemoth claims vanish, Moscow bows no more to winter threats. Turkey, energized by diversity, strengthens in NATO optics. But wait, how might Putin's next desperate move shatter this fragile equilibrium, dragging allies into the vortex? The narrative twists into overdrive outreach mused from Trump's era, weaving Ankara-Willis house ties. The air thickens with anticipation, alliances fraying under unseen strains. Will Russia lash out blindly, or stand exposed? Each ripple widens, transforming geopolitical chess into a storm of reckoning. Recent strategic shifts have transformed the Black Sea into a frontline battleground. Turkey's bold move to establish a permanent NATO naval force in the region has shaken Moscow to its core. This NATO-aligned fleet, officially sanctioned by an agreement with Romania and Bulgaria, meets all international standards without breaking the Montreux Convention. It's a masterstroke, turning the Black Sea from a Russian playground into a NATO fortress. But why does this matter so much? Could this single move finally shatter Russia's naval dominance here? Russia has long issued threats against US and UK ships daring to enter their cherished waters. Yet, now, there are no American vessels challenging Moscow's claims. Instead, every Russian submarine's move is tracked instantly by Turkish sonars and NATO data networks. These signals reach Brussels in real time, giving NATO unprecedented control. The Black Sea, once considered Russia's backyard, is now NATO's most fortified outpost. This strategic overhaul leaves Moscow's fleet stranded. Ships in Sevastopol cannot move freely. Their paths are blocked. Vessels must retreat to Novorossiysk or push further east to the Caucasian coast. The Black Sea is not Moscow's anymore. But Turkey isn't stopping there. The stakes are rising beyond the water. Putin's risky gamble in the Black Sea has had ripple effects across the eastern Mediterranean and Syria. Russia's military footprint there was meant to be a staying presence. Its key bases, Tartus in Syria and Mimimim, depend entirely on supply lines passing through the Istanbul and Dardanelles Straits. Without these crucial arteries, Russian forces could become confined, isolated hostages in distant lands. Imagine the fuel, ammunition, and troop rotations all relying on ships navigating these narrow waterways. If Turkey tightens the noose, Russia's Syrian operations could unravel overnight. What's Turkey's real goal? Is this merely regional power play, or does it threaten the very foundation of Russian influence? With each move, Ankara tightens its grip, transforming regional disputes into a NATO chess match. Every sound of a ship's engine and every radar pulse signals a new chapter in this unfolding confrontation. Will Russia's strategic outposts in the Mediterranean and the East be forced into surrender? Or is this the start of an entirely new game where Turkey and NATO hold the winning cards? The answers hang in the balance, waiting for the next unexpected twist. Russia's goal is to expand its military footprint significantly in the region. Yet, Turkey's strategic moves threaten this ambition. By tightening or cutting off the logistics routes, citing tensions in the Black Sea, or invoking the powers granted by the Montreux Convention, Ankara could push Russia into a corner within weeks. Imagine a military base cut off from fuel, ammunition, and reinforcements. It's no longer a deterrent, just a stranded outpost, waiting for rescue. This isn't fear-mongering, it's a clear mathematical reality. Without logistical support, even the most formidable base turns into a hostage camp. And Ankara holds the power to squeeze Moscow from two directions, from the north and the south. The stakes extend far beyond the Mediterranean. Russia's operations across Africa are intertwined with these supply routes. The network of Libyan air bases acts as vital transit points, funneling arms and personnel into the heart of the Sahel. Bases like Matan al-Sara, al-Khadim, al-Jufra, and others form a resilient web, linking Syria to Africa. This network isn't just logistical, it's a strategic chokehold. When Turkey cuts off even part of this artery, Russia's entire African plan could crumble like a sandcastle facing the tide. The stakes are colossal. Moscow's influence, already fragile, risks evaporating in an instant. Could Turkey's next move be the final blow? And if so, what does this mean for Moscow's global projection of power? As these engines of conflict grind into motion, one thing is certain: the balance of power is shifting, and the landscape will never be the same. Recently, Turkey's moves have drastically reshaped the geopolitical landscape. The inside network that linked Russia in Syria to its endeavors in the Sahel now faces an uncertain future. These hidden supply routes, vital for Russia's long-term strategic interests, are less monitored, requiring fewer political agreements with Libyan authorities and granting Moscow access to distant corridors vital for its global ambitions. But here's the shocking part: if Turkey cuts off this massive pipeline, Russia's influence in Africa could vanish like dew in the desert. All those years of careful planning might crumble in an instant. The Mediterranean, once a friendly sea for Russian Navy patrols, has now become a battleground. The powerful moves by Ankara are sending shockwaves through Russia's energy and diplomatic spheres, shaking the very foundation of its decades-old plans. For years, Kremlin officials saw Turkey as the last bridge connecting them to Western markets, a safe harbor for energy exports and diplomatic negotiations. Yet recent developments show that this bridge may have been destroyed from within. It all peaked when Ankara signed a groundbreaking 20-year energy agreement with the US-based giant Mercuria. This deal guarantees the purchase of 4 billion cubic meters of liquefied natural gas each year, a strategic blow to Russia's influence. This isn't just a commercial contract, it's a declaration of independence, Turkey turning away from Gazprom and Moscow's energy grip. The timing couldn't be worse. After losing key markets in Europe, Moscow now faces the dramatic possibility of losing Turkey, the second largest consumer remaining. This long-term commitment signals a clear intention: Turkey plans to rely on LNG imports from across the Atlantic, not Russian pipelines. Such a shift has rendered Russia's claim to being an energy superpower ineffective in Turkey. It neutralized Moscow's strongest diplomatic card. No longer are they forced into submission by threats of winter shutoffs. Instead, Russia is now trying to diversify its energy sources, strengthening its position by reducing dependence. But this strategic pivot raises a simple, terrifying question: how far can Russia's influence truly extend if its energy dependencies are breaking apart? The consequences threaten to reshape alliances, power balances, and global markets, leaving Moscow more exposed than ever before. The ripple effects of Russia's failed energy dominance are now spreading beyond energy, reaching into the defense sector and threatening NATO's balance. Efforts under the Trump administration have sped up negotiations between Ankara and Washington to resolve the deadlock over the S-400 missile system. Tension mounts as officials discuss bold options: dismantling the Russian-made defense system, transferring it to U.S. control at an airbase, or even removing it altogether. Imagine the shockwaves if Turkey re-enters the fighter jet alliance, stepping back into the F-35 program. This move would strike a lethal blow to Russia's defense industry prestige, exposing the Trojan horse strategy they try to embed within NATO. It signals a complete diplomatic siege and encirclement that leaves Moscow isolated from all sides. From the Western Front, a new warship funded by Romania patrols the Black Sea, a constant reminder of NATO's expanding reach. In the air, upgraded F-16s and the possible return of F-35 fighters threaten Russia's aerial dominance. And on the economic battlefield, Turkey's recent LNG agreement sends a clear message: attack us, and you'll face more than just military retaliation, your influence in the region will shrink. This sequence of bold moves is slowly dismantling Russia's grip over the Black Sea, elevating Turkey into regional leadership. The smoke billowing from the Tsank ship is more than fuel fumes, it's the wreckage of Moscow's trust with Ankara. When the flames die out, what remains could be an irreparable chasm, a fractured alliance beyond repair. Russia seems blind to the trap forming around it. Its hostile gambles, missiles, drones, political brinkmanship are pushing Turkey further away. Perhaps it's time to ask, are Moscow's tactics sealing its own fate? The truth is, by trying to flex its muscle, Russia is quietly handing Ankara the keys to lock its outposts and close the strategic straits forever. What secrets lie behind these provocative moves? And will Moscow realize the cost before it's too late? The once familiar Black Sea, thought to be Russia's invincible backyard, is transforming into a battlefield owned by Turkey. Recent actions intercepting drones and striking ships have shifted the strategic balance. Instead of dominating, Russia now faces a powerful, NATO-equipped Turkish navy ready to close the vital straits at any moment. Imagine the icy silence after a drone is shot down. Then, the sharp clang of missile strikes echoing across the waters. Moscow's reckless moves are not just staging a regional confrontation, they're awakening a sleeping giant. Turkey's response is precise, deliberate. They've inherited the keys to the Black Sea, and they hold the door shut. The so-called Russian lake is turning into a Turkish-held fortress. This isn't merely about military dominance. It's a digital chokehold. Each Turkish radar scan, every missile launched, tightens the grip. The Black Sea's waters are no longer Moscow's private domain. Turkish vessels, equipped with NATO standards, monitor and restrict Russian submarines. The once open highway for Russian ships has turned into a narrow, guarded corridor. When Ankara decides Russia's access is cut off, the consequence is catastrophic. But the real power lies not only in the navy. It's the geopolitical game. Turkey has opened a new front against Russian influence in a broader fight for control. And behind the scenes, a new alliance rises, an operational pact between Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria. This pact establishes a formidable naval force, independent of Russia's restrictions, flying NATO flags, fully integrated into Western defenses. This fleet, capable of detecting submarines and controlling sea lanes, transforms the Black Sea into NATO's fortress and Russia's nightmare. As Russian vessels are forced into tighter corners, their ability to project power in the region collapses. Naval bases in Syria become more vulnerable, supply lines strained and finally severed. All this while Turkey's expanding influence threatens to push Russia's footprint in the Mediterranean to the brink of exhaustion. Moscow's decades-old hopes for a foothold in Syria and the eastern Mediterranean hinge on a fragile link, its control of the Turkey Straits, now at risk of being crushed. The signing of a landmark deal with a major energy firm marks a turning point. Turkey's long-term plan to diversify its energy sources cripples Russia's hold on its European market. This strategic move signals a shift. Turkey isn't just a regional actor anymore, it's asserting itself as a global energy leader. The consequences ripple outwards. Russia's energy leverage, once formidable, is shrinking like melting ice. This forces Moscow to rethink its entire foreign policy, as its grip on regional influence slips away. The outcome is seismic. Russia's traditional alliances weaken, while Turkey's bold moves carve a new path of dominance across the Black Sea and beyond. As Ankara tightens its grip, the anticipation rises. Will Russia find a way to counter this sneak attack? Or will the strategic corridors that once carried its power now become barriers, sealed by Turkish resolve? The game is on. One move could redefine the balance of power for decades to come. The opening of the Zangezur corridor would strip Russia of its influence over key trade routes. This would be an economic catastrophe, costing Moscow billions in transit fees and eroding its dominance over Central Asia. Countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan now see they do not need Russia's permission to sell their energy or goods. Turkey has presented these nations with an alternative path, one that bypasses Moscow entirely. Just as Putin's threats over energy have failed in Europe, his control over regional logistics is crumbling in Asia too. The more isolated Russia becomes, the more Turkey solidifies its role as the vital crossroads linking east and west, north and south. This strategic shift is causing deep psychological fractures within Russia's command structure. Orders to attack Turkish ships and UAVs reveal a panic-driven desperation. Losing grip on the Black Sea is no longer just a naval setback, it threatens the very future of Crimea. According to a military theory called island defense, if Crimea's land and sea connections are severed, the peninsula becomes a trap rather than a fortress. The Kerch Strait Bridge and access routes are the lifelines of Crimea's defenses. Black Sea restrictions mean the Russian fleet remains confined, leaving Crimea vulnerable and isolated. Turkey's firm stance at sea is indirectly supporting Ukraine's efforts in Crimea. With the Russian Navy restricted to port by fear of Turkish patrols, Ukraine's drones and missile systems have a clear path to strike. A missile shot at that sink ship was not just an attack, it was a desperate signal of Russia's shrinking options. Every aggressive move Moscow makes only stiffens the opposition. As tensions spiral, the picture becomes clear: Russia's grip on the Black Sea is slipping, and Turkey's strategic prowess is turning this region into its own chessboard. The question remains, how much longer can Moscow hold on to its empire's fading shadows? Imagine the Black Sea no longer as a quiet backyard for Russia, but a tense battlefield where naval giants cower in their ports, terrified of advancing threats. Ukraine's drones and missiles now prowl with deadly ease, turning the waters into a hunting ground. Russia's desperate missile strike on a Turkish ship reveals their panic, a cornered beast lashing out. Yet, each defiant blast only ignites fiercer resistance against them, hardening the Allied lines like forged steel under pressure. Can you believe it? The very empire that once ruled the waves is now melting like ice in a spring thaw, its imperial dreams evaporating under merciless strain. As the waters simmer and bubble, a cacophony of distant explosions echoes, mingled with the salty tang of sea spray whipping in the wind. But where Russia craves a display of raw power, the bubbling chaos does the opposite: it dissolves their grandiose vision, leaving behind a bitter, acrid taste of defeat. Picture this: Ankara's patient strategy fused with unwavering military muscle paints a stark reality. Russia, once the unchallenged master of energy flows, military domains, and trade arteries, has lost its grip completely. In this transformed world, where Turkey's ambitions align seamlessly with NATO's defenses, Moscow finds its avenues choked, its options slain like a wounded animal. The sudden roar of Turkish drones shattering the night sky, or the harsh clang of a struck ship in port? These aren't reversals, they're catalysts, propelling Ankara to tighten its hold even harder. And remember, throughout the annals of history, who controlled the straits shaped the entire North's destiny, dictating prosperity or peril with an iron quill. Now, that mighty pen rests firmly in Ankara's grasp, scripting a doom-laden tale for Moscow, one devoid of triumphant horizons. But what's the jaw-dropping twist here, the one that could redefine everything? As the pressure mounts and Russia's facade fractures, evidence emerges that Turkey's maneuvers have secretly crippled Moscow's lifeline long before the first shot. Hidden alliances and strategic genius mean Russia's once formidable energy blackmail and military theaters are like sandcastles washing away. It's not aggression that crowns the victor, but the silent, unstoppable tide of control. Has the game already flipped in Ankara's favor, leaving Putin scrambling against shadows? What hidden masterstroke waits in the depths, ready to swallow the Kremlin's empire whole?